All right, a huge thank you to Red River, all of our other sponsors as well that have been helping us over the course of this day to help put on this event. Of course, Chambers Plan, World Trade Center Winnipeg, Manitoba Business Matters, and G-Fit Wellness. Man, we're just like, we keep going. Like we're going, how quickly we're moving between panels. It's, you know, I don't know that we could ever do these in person again. So I'm very excited to introduce our next panel, which is The Path to Normalcy. And of course, as we've had discussions throughout the day, the pandemic has illuminated deficiencies. It has shined a light on the need for improved digital infrastructure and literacy so everyone can participate equally in the economy. It has brought e-commerce to the must-have column and has proven just how important it is to be nimble and agile when it comes to learning, accommodating workers, ensuring well-being, and creating the new workplace. And as I said when we started this morning, there's no way to go back, and it's about continuing to move forward. And with us today to moderate the final panel is a good friend of mine from way back in our old radio days at CJOB in the late 90s, which shows both of our ages, is Julie Rempel, the Vice President of Marketing and Partnerships with Vexit, a Manitoba-based tech company that is redefining the professional services industry through virtual connections. As the former head of marketing for upstart airline Flair, Julie spearheaded their national rebrand and was a key figure in making low-fare air travel a reality for Canadians. Drawn to fast-paced, ever-evolving business, she shifted gears to 2019 to join Vexit, where she builds relationships to help people and businesses across professional advice for life's serious stuff. Vexit, of course, is also a great Manitoba Chamber of Commerce panel. Julie, floor is yours.
Thanks, Chuck. And I'm amazed at how long we've known each other, considering we're only 30 years old. So
it's true.
It's amazing. Yeah. No, honestly, I am so delighted to be able to moderate this panel, and what a great segue from Minister Carr and talking about what it's going to be looking like moving forward. And obviously we've assembled such a great panel moving forward to discuss the path to normalcy. And even as I was preparing to look at what we're going to be talking about today, I thought to myself, even the title itself 15 months ago, had we had that title, we'd all be scratching our heads thinking, what the heck does that mean? But yet today it goes with very little explanation. Like Chuck said, my name is Julie Rempel, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you to Red River College for sponsoring this panel discussion. And just to shout out to Manitoba Chambers, you know, for all the work that they've done this past year and continue to do for businesses and communities across this province. It's really been incredible to be on the sidelines just to see how they've been such great advocates for businesses across this province. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists, and we're going to jump right into some questions and just to get some idea of how and what the path to normalcy looks like as we approach a high level of vaccinations across the country and we start that process of opening up. So with me here today is Kelly Fornell. She is the brand new CEO for Tech Manitoba. We have Janice Harper. She is the Executive Vice President of People and Culture for the NFI Group. And Fred Meyer, who is also one of the new president of and CEO for Red River College. So thank you all so much for joining us. And I see Kelly's turned off her mic. So let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're extremely new to your role at Tech Manitoba. So even from that perspective though, what have you seen and how do you look at the role that Tech Manitoba might be playing in the much anticipated reopening and beyond?
Well, thanks, Julie. It's so good to be here. I really do feel like Tech Community, which is a tech-based industry association, our primary role is to continue to support the tech community, and we do that through facilitating connections. So going forward, it's going to be very much, which is playing to our strength, again, making those connections possible for our members, as well as for our non-members. And that's probably something that's come out of the pandemic, that we've reached out to more of the business community to get a sense of how has the pandemic been for them and what role does technology play in their solution going forward.
And we'll touch and we'll talk a lot more about that as we move forward. But I do want to introduce Janice Harper. Your experience in working with people in large scale manufacturing sector and is obviously crucial to both the social and economic recovery as we move forward in this process towards the path to normalcy. Tell us about yourself, your experiences over maybe even the past 15 months and how NFI has managed throughout this past year and potentially what the planning process looks like.
Sure, Julie, happy to be here. Hello, everyone. And so I think so many business participants on this session is, it's been a long year. It's been a long 15 months. And so I think I'm very excited and really embracing, like all of us, this path to normalcy. And it's going to be different in so many ways, but excited about that prospect and what that holds. At NFI, just a little bit of context, NFI is, is a family of companies. Many of you will know us more locally as a New Flyer, the transit bus manufacturer. We're headquartered here in Winnipeg, and MCI Coach. So we're a coach, transit bus manufacturer, parts manufacturer, so service and solution providers for mass transportation. And so this is, and we're in Canada, the US, and so in 10 countries. So when you think about the challenges for us over the past year, like so many businesses, we've saw an impact or a decline in our markets, certainly as a result of decline in ridership. So our customers have been impacted. So that's meant adjustments to our plans, to our schedules. From an HR perspective, and I'm putting on my CPHR past chair hat, we have a number of members on the call as well, and certainly the HR practitioners have been frontline in really supporting businesses in continuity and emergency response planning, and our business, like so many others, has not been immune to the realities of a coach market that really deteriorated rapidly last year, to decline in ridership, to customers who were unable to have product delivered, and also at the same time, as an essential or critical infrastructure, trying to support, build, and product that customers could get. So we were really, running the gamut. We've furloughed 8,000 people for a couple of months. We've laid off. We were about 9,000 people worldwide at the beginning of this pandemic, and reduced about 1,500 people. So the challenge and the strain and the pressure and the angst in the organization to manage through all of that and to come out and recover and be resilient, and we're still in recovery, and looking to sort of revive and thrive through all of this is going to be very critical for us. And I know for probably a number of businesses on the call, whether your market's been impacted, and your customer base has been impacted or not, it's also just being about the impact of people and having to, stand up an emergency response and stand up a business continuity and safe work protocol response and try to operate or shut down or reopen or any of those things that have had significant implications. And so, that's been a lot of our journey and still very much is over this period of time. And so, we look forward to and continuing our plans in terms of recovery and moving forward. So.
Mm-hmm. I know I can't say enough and tip my hat enough towards HR professionals this past year. I mean, they've borne so much stress of the impact that all of this has had, just even their own emotional health, but yet putting on all that strain upon their shoulders. And I've seen it personally over and over and over again, and it's been an incredible journey to witness how strong and how much work has gone in this past year towards people and their well well-being. So we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, as the discussion moves forward. But Fred, I do want to bring you into the conversation here. You entered your role as, between phase 1 and phase 2, I believe, of the lockdowns. So I imagine one of the most immediate challenges was how to even deliver education in new and engaging ways, and even deal with some of the disappointment of individuals not being able to attend college in the way that they wanted to. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and what role you believe post-secondary education will play in the path to normalcy.
Well, thank you very much, Julie, and I want to thank the Chamber for having us here today, and for the my panelist members as well for the conversation we're going to have. So that's a great point. It's interesting. I'll pick off where Janice was and what you spoke about as well, which is, the important role, that immediate role of emergency response and HR and that. And I can't underline enough how important that was to make sure that we had, the proper plans in place and the ability to transition as quickly as we did. And really in that lies a challenge for us in post-secondary education. You can imagine, just like everybody else, one day everybody was in class and the next day we went immediately to remote learning, having people off campus. And when you first started off, you thought it was only going to be 14 days, a couple weeks, this thing would be past. We never thought when we started that we'd be where we were or where we are right now. And so, yeah, that's been the largest learning for me, has been the ability to adapt quickly, how decisions where we used to take a lot of time on decisions, we had to make them quickly, and weren't afforded that type of luxury. But it's also, provided us with some great opportunities as well. The college, the faculty, the staff that were involved in our support on COVID recovery was quite a learning for myself, and I think for all of us, how quickly we were able to turn around some of those micro-credentials. That's a sort of short type of learning, very skill specific, online, combined with the critical hands-on pieces as well. So the ability to respond quickly and stand that up, I think was a critical a part of sort of my early days here as well, and very successfully done by the great team over here at the college. I think as we look forward, that gives us a good insight as to what's needed into the future. I think what we've learned there, what we heard even before we got into the pandemic, was the need for reskilling and upskilling in all SMEs and all of our industries. And really the fact is that learners are not our traditional learners. We still have people who come out of high school who are first time to post-secondary, but an increasing amount of demand will really come from existing employees that have impacts through disruption. And we know, reports like RBC's Humans Wanted spoke about 25% of all jobs in Canada being disrupted through technology, through automation and artificial intelligence and that. So we really need to be, as a post-secondary, prepared for that. And the lessons that we learned through the micro-credentials, the ability to deliver that quickly and efficiently in this blended format, is really what we think in the future is going to be needed going forward.
I love the word disruption, and that it's even being used in a positive sense as we move forward in how that affects change for all of us, and that disruption at times can be a positive thing for anyone who embraces it and sees the opportunity inside of it. So I think, let's open up the discussion to all of us, but as the best kind of perspective often comes from our own experiences. So as we hold up, a mirror to our own organizations, what has the past 15 months really revealed about your organizations, your companies? And, maybe describe if there were some surprises along the way and how that translated into potentially future planning. Fred, why don't we start with you?
Sure. One of the things that it really revealed for us was, and I think for everybody else, that your traditional operating model, does need to adapt. And we spoke about disruption. And I think that if you look at post-secondary education, I think that we've essentially been teaching in a very similar way that we have for a long time. And we're very good at it. We're excellent at it, actually. And what we've learned is that moving to online, moving to blended learning, using this new technology, looking at sort of that those credentials that are smaller, more customizable to the learner, is really where the future of learning is going. The integration of that with work integrated learning, the ability to work closely alongside employers and industry to not only gain learnings from industry, but also to transition and transfer knowledge from inside of post-secondary into industry, is going to be a critical link going forward. And we see that's going to be a big part of what our future is going to look like as well.
So on that note, like as you're essentially feeding the industries, their future employees to Janice and to, all these companies. How are you shifting the mindset of and helping shape the mindset potentially of these learners, these people that are in that education process towards employment, and preparing them for what is also potentially a changed workplace for them?
Yeah, and I think that, one of the things we've told our students who are going through this, and again, it was a massive shift immediately, is that in fact, this is what the workplace is going to look like in the future. When we're speaking about digital skills, when we're speaking about communicating the way we are right now, this is, obviously it won't be exactly the way it is right now, but it will find its way into work. So what you're learning and experiencing right now is very applicable going forward. I'll use a very specific example. In our program where we partner with entrepreneurs through our ACE space, and that's taking students that have digital skills, technological skills, and partnering them with entrepreneurs looking to develop solutions. That was very much hands-on, face-to-face. We had the opportunity to actually use a platform called Ripen, which actually brings together entrepreneurs and businesses that are looking for solutions to some of the problems they have. And that platform allows them to partner with students. So where before we were working with a smaller group of local companies, at times it was difficult for us to find partners, and we're always looking for those partners. This allowed them through that platform to work with companies that were across Canada, across the province, in rural areas, even internationally as well. So that ability to gain that knowledge and that skill on a digital platform is something that we're going to see into the future, and our students are able to learn that way and then transition into the workforce with that knowledge.
Janice, are you at all nervous about, as a major employer in the market and beyond? Like, are you nervous, or have you seen a shift in what employees might be expecting coming in, or what, how you've had to adapt as an employer?
Mm-hmm. Well, just to pick up on what Fred was saying, just when I guess the short answer is yes, for sure, and I think we're excited about that, and I think we're actually going to continue to see more. I really liked what Fred was talking about in terms of what we would call internally social learning, the flexible learning, work integrated, learning. So really, as from our workforce development standpoint and traditional training and learning that we need to do as an organization for our teams. And then of course, what you might be looking for as people come in, we've really, this has really presented an opportunity, particularly over the past 15 months, to really, for all the obvious reasons, to really leverage those systems and to really look at the ways that you can do that differently and deliver training internally, which has really certainly benefits for us when we look at culture alignment or consistency, and when you talk about a distributed workforce, and so whether that's in Manitoba or in Canada, the US, or every business has those may have those challenges, there's really an opportunity to do that. The other thing that that Fred really touches on, that's very attractive for career development and for employers, is really about how do you do that while at work. Like the reality is, if you want to improve your skills, you know, and an example for us would be that really this shift, this transformative shift to advanced manufacturing. So we are, you know, in terms of climate, we're building zero emission product. We've set up infrastructure, our facilities. It's not just tomorrow talk. We actually, you know, about 30%, 40% of our builds over the next 2 to 3 years, we're building zero emission product. So it's really about workforce readiness. It's how do you leverage those programs while people are working? And for adult education, I mean, it's a brilliant model and very, very useful and helpful to us. So we can really see those moves in terms of the digital application for training and development. And that's been helpful. And then I think, you know, and we can, you know, park it because you'll probably get to it, but just this whole work from home and what this shift as a result of emergency response, this giant pilot that you know, so many employers have, you know, engaged in, and what's the findings from that, and where has that set the stage, right, to kind of continue to transform business. So there's lots there, but it's definitely been impactful.
Yeah, and that's a subject matter almost, you know, exclusively into its own. And yes, I've packed my dogs away right now from work from home, so they will be
Yeah.
impacting this conversation. Kelly, you know, you see a lot, you work with a wide spectrum of companies that are doing amazing things in this province. And so has Tech Manitoba seen and experienced some actual surprises? Because in some ways there's always surprises there, right? Because you're at the forefront of innovation to a certain extent, well, to a major extent. So what have you seen over the last 15 months or so? I know, knowing the fact that you've just stepped into this role recently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the main things for us was even just internally focused, having to rethink how do we provide signature events. So our Disrupted series that typically is a one-day in-person event, you know, great chance to network, is now 3 half days that we do exclusively online. So how do you as a tech association move something online and provide an experience that ideally surpasses expectations while you're trying to figure it out all at the same time, right? So it is very much us living with that ambiguity that everybody else is experiencing, but yet still trying to be a leader in the space. So that's one aspect that's really impacted us. The second one, I think, is in many respects, you know, people who are our members, they're in the business of forecasting, right? So when you're, you know, creating IP related to tech, or you're a tech-enabled company, you're already thinking about how to leverage, you know, future tools. You're using them, or you're trying to educate others on how to use them. So if anything, the pandemic has really blown open the doors for us as an association to be able to have a wider conversation with the business community on how technology can help them address their business needs, not just during the pandemic, but ideally after the fact as well. So it's been both an internal time for us to look at how we operate and maybe make some changes, you know, to adapt to going fully online, as well as, you know, what can we do to the wider and support the wider business community in terms of what tech can offer them. And I feel like there is a greater awareness from the business community and appetite, you know, to have something like Tech Manitoba, you know, give them agnostic advice on what are some of the technology options. And one of the things that we've done is we partnered with the World Trade Center Winnipeg to offer, you know, a webinar and workshop series, which is all about how do you adopt a digital strategy? What does e-commerce look like from a practical perspective for you if you're a small, you know, business owner in Manitoba? So we have developed some solutions, some resources for business owners so that, you know, if they're feeling overwhelmed, they can still take part in some learning opportunities and hopefully come out of it with some very practical things that they can incorporate right away.
Yeah, like I think back to even a year ago and where we were in first wave, first lockdown, and, you know, obviously it had a tremendous impact on businesses across the province experiencing that first wave. And then, you know, but I think there was still some type of reluctance toward, for some businesses to really head full on into e-commerce or to step foot fully into digitization. And then, of course, when the second wave came and the second lockdown came and Christmas was approaching, you know, a massive retail season, and all those types of conflict started to happen in the marketplace, it forced a lot of us to make decisions and leaps towards, and, you know, even as a sideline consumer, I'm you know, rooting for them, like, go e-commerce, go, like, you can do it. And so where did, you know, what did you see happen inside of that space, particularly in how businesses had to shift towards that digitization of their product lines and the way that they delivered services?
I think more than anything, there was the the willingness, sorry, excuse me, about wanting to do things differently. It was a great opportunity and continues to be so for all businesses to think about their business model, right? Am I reaching my customers in the most effective way? And so when you're given the constraints of a pandemic, where you can't serve people in the same way that you once did, where you can't work together in the same way within an office even, you know, it really forces you to think through what's core to how we operate. You know, I think the other opportunity is it really focuses all of us on identifying who are our customers. What do they need from us? What is actually critical for us to continue to deliver for them versus what was a nice to have and maybe isn't as relevant anymore. So I think more than anything, again, it's that awareness that there is a new way to operate. There's been outreach from businesses about how might we do things differently. And so we offered what we called Tech Pulse Roundtables earlier in the year. And we invited the Chamber and different organizations to reach out to their members and to join us and to share with us what their thoughts were about the pandemic and having to use technology or not use technology, because many had said, we're feeling completely overwhelmed by the choices. We don't know how to approach this, right? Mm-hmm. So the main thing for us was to learn, to listen, to identify themes that the business owners were saying that were impacting them, and then to start to develop, you know, some resources and some programs to address their concerns. And one of the things that came out of that was the workshops and webinars with the World Trade Center Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Thank you. So for all of us, I guess that strategic planning process has certainly begun, because we can see that we're approaching the end, I guess, or we're reaching the next phase of where we, even as a world economy, start to forge ahead. So as those planning processes have begun to be implemented, what will, you know, for Fred, for Janice, for all of us, what will digitization or technology actually play? How much will we keep, and how much will we go, oh, we're glad that that's over with, and we don't have to operate like that anymore? Fred, why don't you start?
Sure. For us, you know, it's interesting. We started our strategic planning process just after I came to the college, and it's a great opportunity. And that's the way that I've explained it to our leadership group and to the college overall. It's a perfect opportunity and time for us to develop a strategic plan with all the learnings that we have through the pandemic and coming out of the other side of it to prepare for that. You speak about the digital element of that. And for us, that's tools. That's a way to connect with students. I spoke before around how that's going to provide us opportunities to you know, provide upskilling and reskilling. I think the other thing that we've noticed and we've grown to understand is that the traditional model of post-secondary education, and if you step back and think about it, you know, predominantly looking at the early part of our lives. Myself, I ended up going to university to post-secondary, you know, and in 4 years gained that sort of those skills that would sort of set you off for your entire career. That's not the case anymore. We spoke about disruption. We spoke about digital and how fast things are changing. And Janice also spoke about advanced manufacturing. That sector in itself is undergoing significant transformation in the type of technology that's there. So for us as an institution of applied learning and applied research, which is a critical aspect for us as well, we see that we need to change that model of education that we've looked at. We need to look at customizable, smaller types of learning. In addition to the core learning that you have, We need to leverage the type of applied research that we do so that we can work much, much closer with industries. I spoke about work integrated learning. That's going to be a critical function going forward, both again from the learner's perspective as well as our partner's perspective. We've got some of the best technology here in advanced manufacturing. We've got facilities in a motive lab that's probably one of the best in North America as well. We need to leverage those assets for economic growth. We heard the minister speak earlier, and he spoke about how we all need to be on board for that economic development. We see that as a critical part of our role going forward as well, and how we can work with chamber partners. And then the other aspect that I'll close with on this one as well, but how we found that the digital aspect of delivery has actually opened the door and reduced barriers to entry to post-secondary. So for us, we've heard stories about learners that have come to us and said, because you're delivering this online, predominantly online or in a blended format, it allows me as a single parent, or it allows me as a, somebody who's working in the gig economy right now to actually learn while I'm working. It matches where I am in my life right now. So I think that's the other learning that we had out of this, and will obviously find its way into our strategic plan and our plans for the future.
So are you looking potentially at a hybrid learning module for students moving forward?
Yeah, and I think, the word, and you've heard me say it several times, blended, I think is important. We use that to describe the fact that there are certain things that you can effectively teach through a digital platform. There are other aspects that are critical for hands-on learning. So you have to find a way of sort of blending that in together and finding that those critical hands-on skills are there, and there's an ability to do that. But the ability to do theoretical and other aspects in a blended format allows flexibility in people's lives as well, to do some of the other things that I spoke about, and to reduce the barriers as well going forward.
Janice, have there been some things that you will keep along the way that really, did it improve some of the things that you were able to do, or how did it translate for an environment where there is a requirement for people to be working together and physically present?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would say, building upon what both Fred and Kelly have said. I mean, definitely the past 15 months and what we've learned in terms of our capacities in terms of digitizing or making things more virtual, whether it's relationships with our customers, with our people, whether they're working remotely, or how we deliver training or communication to them. Any of those things, it's been an exercise in how rapidly we could stand something up, and which would have probably, if I had raised the issue, well, let's all work from home, that probably, I think all of us know, well, that would have been a year of executive debate and discussion, and I'd probably still be talking about it. So I think for business, it just really showed, and maybe we were unusual, but probably not, that just the speed and the resiliency and what we were able to do. And I think that for sure, we'll stay, and we'll continue to develop into our business planning, our strategy, and our objectives. I think practically speaking, as I think about, well, so how does this impact us coming up now and out of this? So, and for, some of the people and businesses listening, it does really vary, I guess, between small and this big business view. And again, how much your business has been impacted, because that, that can really vary. But definitely we think about the step down of safe work protocols. And so what we call a step down, or this downgrade of protocols. And so that really depends by region. And so we've been, we have, let's say, of our 8,000 employees, approximately 1,000 of them are working from home and have been distributed to minimize concerns and spread of transmission within the workplaces, and also to ensure that we have enough space and safety for the essential workers and the people that need to be here to build critical infrastructure product. So there's a time now when we have to think about, based on vaccination rates, right, and when it's reasonable and safe and ready to do so, when do we stop temperature scanning? When do you stop facility sanitization, masks, sanitizer stations, the whole social distancing that you're referencing. So there's a lot of those things right now that we're actively planning for and getting ready now to stage down, and that varies by region. The other piece that we really want to capitalize on, to your point of carrying forward, is our work from home approach. So there is lots of discussion going on within our executive and leadership teams about how we do that, how we implement, what's remote, what's maybe hybrid remote, where do we add some flexibility and continue to maintain some of what we think has gone well for people in terms of work-life balance, in terms of opening up our eyes to, when you think about recruitment and where you draw talent from, it doesn't maybe all have to be in Winnipeg. It doesn't all have to be in Anniston, Alabama. Where can these people be drawn from now to really support, what we need to do? So there's those impacts. The other thing that, I'm very cognizant about in my role is just this impact on people and culture. How has this changed our culture? The pressure, the strain, the anxiety, or the impacts, the isolation for people, grief, right? 1,000 Manitobans have lost their lives, and we know that varies by region. So it's really recovery and getting people to come up out of this. And so, we think about all of those things. And of course, the other thing that I think is uppermost probably in a lot of our minds is just this circular economy, just really this whole piece about the benefits of business, society, and the environment. I think we all know more than ever, given what's happened in terms of digital divide, the impacts of social justice, and we've seen the inequities. And I think over the past year or so, that has really exposed that to all of us. And so I think it's just this call, whether it's in our workplaces or in our societies, that we've got to do better, and we have to pay attention to this, and we have to make sure that we action it. So those are all the kinds of things that we're thinking about in terms of moving forward and not letting that drop, so to speak.
You took I was going to ask you about workplace culture, and just maybe particularly if you can highlight a little bit about, have you seen a change in your workplace culture, and what does that look like, and how do you move forward from it? Like, were there positive things? Was it, or do you have to revamp and do things differently?
There's definitely positives. We definitely could see, teams that rallied, that had, we had businesses that were impacted, that we had to think differently about how we would contain cost, or how we could restructure, and how we could combine and add capacity and do certain things. And we're still doing that, and doing that, on the fly. What might have taken, 12 months or an 18-month planning process has now been condensed into, a very short period of time, like, so many of us. So there's that. And I think for us, for sure, the fact that we've reduced, headcount, and the fact that we've had to send colleagues home, and we've had to restructure the business, and we have people that have had to deal with family members that have been ill, or just, members in our own workplace. So we know that we've continued to survey and do pulse checks to really understand how people are feeling. A lot of it is they're happy with the company response, but there's COVID fatigue, there's pandemic weariness, right? And we just need some time and space for people just to breathe and just to be able to recover and carry on. And so that's where a lot of our emphasis in terms of training, EAP support, encouragement on taking vacation, even though you might not think you have somewhere to go, all that kind of stuff, right? Like, just to really get people to recharge and to be able to recover a bit.
Yeah. I don't know, Kelly. Yeah, exactly. Kelly or Fred, if you have any insights into how the people component of your organizations have been impacted, and what that looks like moving forward for them, and how potentially your cultures have had to make a shift or will make a shift moving forward.
Our team works exclusively remotely, and we got rid of our physical office space on Ellis just before the pandemic, actually. So we have a co-working space in the Grain Exchange that we lease out. But on the whole, generally, we're not there. Like, I did some media training there. We use it for storage, and post-pandemic, we'll go back to using the meeting room spaces and things of that nature. So our team is really comfortable working remotely. But I would say that, if anything, that we're all human beings. So even if we're used to working remotely, we still all suffer from anxiety. We still all suffer from life and the effects, right, that affect our mental health. And so, if anything, it's one of those opportunities for me as a leader on my management team to make sure that we're talking with staff on a regular basis about mental health, about making sure that we're talking about how important it is to focus on mental and physical well-being. And so if I'm having a particularly tough day, that yesterday being a prime example, because with the first day of kids being back home with remote learning and having to get back into the sync of things, there were many interruptions for me during my day. So I said to my team, look, I'm not going to be really effective today. I'm going to go outside, I'm going to recharge, get some vitamin D in between, but I'm probably going to work a little bit more in the evening. And so if you're expecting to hear from me on something, give me a call if it's really urgent, but otherwise I just can't today. Right? I need some time to make sure that my kids are settled. And it'll probably take until next week for me to be at a space again where they're settled, and then I can devote myself being back, to being fully remote again. So I think it's just about, acknowledging that every day is different, that we're human beings, and that it's okay to say if you're not feeling well, you're having a particularly tough time, and, just put the humanity back into it.
Yeah, Vexit is a fully remote company as well, but I always said, there's a distinct difference between working from home and being isolated at home, and that was the difference that we felt during all the different lockdowns, that being one where we're in right now. So I fully stand in agreement in everything that you said, Fred. You obviously have a much larger workforce that you have to deal with. How did the educators themselves, how did they adapt? I know a few at RSC and moving, even shifting their own mindset to how they delivered their services, and the stress that alone might have impacted their mental well-being at times.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. The first thing I'll say is they've been incredible. They've been focused on one thing, which is making sure our students continue to advance in their studies, are able to graduate on time, are able to enter the workforce. So hats off. It has not been easy, and I'll be the first to admit that it's been challenging. As I said, going from one day to the next, from everything you've done delivering in person to all of a sudden going to a digital platform. We've taken a bit of time. Obviously, we've gone through our second term now. We're looking towards the fall as well. I think that as you go through it, it becomes easier. We're still faced with the same thing that Janice and Kelly spoke about. There's fatigue. There's mental health. There is challenges of your family and making sure you're present and you're there for your family during this period of time as well. So just like the two of them had spoken about, we do recognize that and make sure we communicate on that front, indicating that, just yesterday I was on a call and we said, we fully expect that the little faces are going to pop up now and then. That's a reality. And just saying that, and I think Kelly mentioned this and Janice mentioned this, just saying that makes people feel that it's okay, that it's fine, that we're all going through this together. And that's an important aspect for people to feel that they're part of this as a collective, that they're being heard and we're moving together. So you spoke about our faculty. Again, my hat's off to them and the support staff that goes along with that as well. They've been very focused, but it's been challenging. I do think that lots has been learned, and I think there's an opportunity to reflect, and I've already spoken about what the future is going to look like as well. We're not going to get there in a day, just like we did when we transitioned online, but it's going to take us a bit of time. But certainly there's a whole new perspective that's been given to work from home.
Mhm. I just, I want to get to this next piece before our time is up, which is we're all Manitobans, and let's put on our Manitoban hats for a minute and just maybe look at what our expectations are potentially, or what we're looking for and hoping for Manitoba's economy and the workforce, the workplace. Like, what is on the horizon in terms of what we see coming down the pipeline, in terms of what the future looks like for businesses and organizations and associations inside this province. I don't know who wants to begin that conversation. Fred, go ahead, your mic's off. So you're the winner.
I left it on. I guess that's good. But thanks, Julie. That's great. And you know what? I think that we've been speaking a lot about the difficulty in that. But I think as the minister had said earlier, there is this sort of hope on the horizon more than ever has been before. And I think we have to look back at sort of who we are as Manitobans, the diversity and strength of our economy. Those core aspects are still there. They haven't gone anywhere. The spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation that's been there. And we have to think about how our economy has changed as well, and the companies that we've been able to attract. So we're thinking about some of the companies that could have gone anywhere, like Ubisoft, for example, and others around technology. That is a growing opportunity for us. We are starting to develop the center, in addition to our manufacturing capacity and others around digital, around technology. And I really think this is truly an opportunity for us as a province, as digital and technology starts to find its way into agriculture and into some of the traditional things that we do very well. There's a distinct opportunity here for us inside of this province. So my feeling is, and we've invested heavily in it, we're about to open a brand new innovation center in downtown Winnipeg in the Exchange District that is going to be heavily focused on supporting entrepreneurs and digital skills and, working to bring newcomers to Manitoba through our language training center and recognizing those credentials. So my feeling is that there is an extremely bright future for us and many opportunities. We just have to think about that time prior to the pandemic and all of the good momentum that was there. For example, Janice and New Flyer, the ability to build back through a resilient recovery and what green jobs will look like going to the future. All of those things are right on the horizon for Manitoba.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know we all were and partook in the shop local scenario, but I think it's evolved to grow local, and that's like grow local talent, grow local like every sector that we can think of. It's that opportunity to really focus on what's here and what's now, and how we as Manitobans impact not only the Canadian economy, but potential global economy as well, and what we can do moving forward. Kelly, why don't you go ahead and weigh in on this?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement, especially in terms of, I really feel like we're on the threshold of becoming a province that is known for having its diverse and inclusive tech sector guide our other key industries into really a new era of tech enablement that is in pursuit of growth and supports resiliency. As Fred mentioned, we have a very diverse economy. And so I think we're just going to play to our strengths. And it's a matter, again, of those collaborations that make each of our sectors really, really successful.
Mm-hmm. Janice.
I'm just nodding here because between Fred and Kelly, I could not have said it better. I mean, we are a proud player and on this local scene, and I think NFI Group is we've grown into NFI Group, and we've done this from this prairie city in Winnipeg, Manitoba. We're a global independent manufacturer. We've got lots to do, lots to learn, but we're in this in terms of innovation. Sustainability, we're poised to lead advanced manufacturing and zero emission product from Winnipeg. And so we're here. There's plenty of room for lots of other businesses here. We're a diverse economy. And I think we've demonstrated that we've got the capacity and the know-how and the support and the partners here locally to do that. And so we're really excited about the future.
I think we're going to be deliberately focused, and so that will give us increased momentum.
I love that. That's such a, a great and powerful statement right there. What have been your key lessons that you have learned over the last 15 months, and through those lessons, how that will impact your leadership of the organizations that you head into the future?
I'm unmuted, so I would say more than anything, it's about acknowledging that ambiguity is a part of this, right? And so oftentimes the decision-making beforehand was very logical, right? Something came forward, we had a process of how to think it through and make a decision. And now because of the pandemic, much of what we're faced with deciding upon doesn't have that normal sequencing. So we have to be better adept at probing, at experimentation, and then making decisions to scale something up. And I think that's something that is, for me personally, a result of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Fred?
Yeah, I would say in agreement with Kelly, adaptability is really that one skill that has come out to be highlighted. The ability, and we saw this, and you spoke about the shop local and our members of the chamber that have really adapted to what's been thrown their way. That skill has really been something that is sort of highlighted for me and come out of this as well. And I think it'll serve us well coming out of the other side of this as well going forward.
Awesome. Janice?
I would say, and I agree, and I think it's really about our ability to be resilient, and we've been all in this together. So if anything, I think it's helped to underline as well that we need each other. We're a community, and we're a community that doesn't necessarily always have to be face to face, and we've demonstrated the different ways that we can do that. And so that's been a wonderful surprise in the midst of all of this. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more that ultimately these last 15 months have really brought us together as a province, as a country, and we certainly have a stronger focus moving forward to how working together we can have a great impact on not only our economy, but we also have a recognition of what people go through in terms of their personal fatigue, as well as their emotional well-being, their mental well-being. And I think that has been a tremendous eye-opener for many employers and leaders across the province. So that has been certainly a positive, as well as advice sharing. I'd say, I've really witnessed a tremendous amount of opportunity of where professionals have been unguarded and have allowed, here I have this knowledge and I'm willing and able to share, which the three of you have just done so brilliantly over this past hour. So I see Chuck is in the corner there. So I feel like that's like the gong going forward. I just want to say, for sure, this has been such a powerful discussion. Again, this has been sponsored by Red River College. So thank you very much for that. And I believe you guys are heading into the AGM. So without further ado, I will pass it back over to Chuck.
Thanks,
Thank
Julie.
you very much, Julie, to Janice, to Fred, and to Kelly for joining us for this third panel. Great discussion. Really appreciated all of your expertise.